Hi, my name is Brandon and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I'm reading from Living Sober, a book put out by Alcoholics Anonymous World Services. And I'm going to talk about two sections that I read this morning. First is staying away from the first drink, and the second is using a 24-hour plan. So first, talking about staying away from the first drink. They say expressions commonly heard in AA are, if you don't take that first drink, you can't get drunk, and one drink is too many, but 20 are not enough. They go on to say it is the first drink which triggers immediately or sometime later the compulsion to drink more and more until we are in drinking trouble again. I can identify with that big time. When I was in my addiction and drinking very heavily, I used to, on weekend mornings, wake up with the craving first thing in the morning to pop open a beer. And it really was something that was, especially if I was hungover and wanted to chase that feeling away, it was a very, very strong craving. But I knew as soon as I opened that first beer, the day was shot. And I would not be able to quit drinking after that. It was just something that I found incredibly difficult. And if I tried to quit drinking, if I tried to have just a beer and then quit drinking, the hours between the time that I stopped drinking and started drinking again were just intolerable. And I found myself being impatient and just waiting for the drinking time to begin again. So in AA, we think about, that first drink, that very first drink we take, that's the problem. And that is a big, big part of the idea that we can't just have one drink. We're not those kind of people. I know those kind of people. I used to want to be one of those kind of people, and I used to think that somehow, someday, magically, I'd become one of those people. But that's not the way it happens. The way it happens is that for alcoholics and addicts, we typically take one drink, and before we even get that first sip down our throat, we're already thinking about the next one. So the idea is we don't take that first drink. And as long as we don't take the first drink, we don't have to worry about the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the 20th that get us into so much trouble. And that leads into using a 24-hour plan and really focusing on, and what this means is really focusing on today and really focusing in on the moment, which I've talked about in previous videos. One of the books that I've read before is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Really like that book because it focuses in on what's most important is what's happening in the moment. The moment is all that's guaranteed, and in reality, it's all that we can really be sure of. So we need to focus on what we're doing in that moment, not what happened in the past that we can't change, or not what might happen in the future that we can't predict. What they say about the 24-hour plan for dealing with addiction and alcoholism is this, and I'm going to read a big section here. Although we realize that alcoholism is a permanent, irreversible condition, our experience has taught us to make no long-term promises about staying sober. We have found it more realistic and more successful today. I am not taking a drink just for today. Even if we drank yesterday, we can plan not to drink today. We may drink tomorrow. Who knows whether we'll even be alive then? But for this 24 hours, we decide not to drink. No matter what the temptation or provocation, we determine to go to any extremes necessary to avoid a drink today. Our friends and families are understandably weary of hearing us vow, "This time I really mean it," only to see us lurch home loaded. So we do not promise them, or even each other, not to drink. Each of us promises only herself or himself. It is, after all, our own health and our own life at stake. We, not our family and friends, have to take the necessary steps to stay well. If the desire to drink is really strong, many of us chop the 24 hours down into smaller parts. So you may hear people talk about one day at a time. That's what they're referring to here. And then you may hear some people talk about 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. Sometimes that's what it takes to stay sober for that one day. We can endure the temporary discomfort of not drinking for just 1 more hour, then 1 more, and so on. Many of us began our recovery in just this way. In fact, every recovery from alcoholism and addiction began with 1 sober hour. Our version of this is simply postponing the next drink. They go on to say, today is always here. Life is daily. Today is all we have, and anybody can go 1 day without drinking. Although I used to doubt that about myself. First, we try living in the now just in order to stay sober. And it works. Once the idea has become a part of our thinking, we find that living life in 24-hour segments is an effective and satisfying way to handle many other matters as well. So, I am personally very committed to sobriety and recovery. In this moment, as I'm sitting here recording this video, I look at this as a lifetime commitment. This is something I want to do for the rest of my life, something I intend to do for the rest of my life, and what I'm doing right now is part of what I think I need to do in order to maintain it for the rest of my life. But here's the key. I'm only worried about staying sober today. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I will worry about tomorrow if I get a tomorrow. And I know what I need to do tomorrow in order to stay sober tomorrow. And it's pretty much the same thing I'm doing today. But what I'm focused on and what I'm concentrating on right now is what do I need to do to stay sober today? And so that's the idea of taking things 24 hours at a time. It doesn't mean you're not committed to a lifetime of sobriety. It doesn't mean that you're white knuckling it and just trying to make it to bedtime and then you'll be okay. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is focusing in on what do I need to do today to stay sober. And then having the commitment to do that every day for the rest of your life. And this leads to my favorite passage from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this passage says, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Damn, that's beautiful. I love that. Every day is a day where we must carry the vision of God's will into our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. So, whether or not you believe in God, whether or not God plays a role in your recovery, the idea that we are not cured, we have a daily reprieve contingent on maintenance of our spiritual condition. That's the important thing to carry with us. And that, in living sober, is what they're talking about when they talk about a 24-hour plan for not drinking or using. So I wanted to clear that up. This is the second time I recorded this video, because in the first video I recorded it, things didn't come out quite right. I listened to it again and I needed to clear up some things about the difference between being committed to a lifetime of recovery, but also only focusing on what you need to do today for that recovery, and not focusing on, well, where am I going to be 10 years from now? What am I going to be doing 20 years from now? Am I still going to be sober? Am I still going to be doing this? Don't worry about that stuff. That's the kind of thinking that we used to have in our addiction. Think about what you need to be doing today. Focus on that. Do the next right thing and just keep doing that. And you keep doing that for the rest of your life, you will stay sober. 1 day at a time. Hope you guys have a good day this day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow, God willing.